Hey everybody, Josh here, talking from Happy Monday. I look a bit gaunt. Um, so I've been sick, as most of you know, and yeah, it wasn't fun. It was pretty horrible, but having said that, it was only slightly worse than the last time I remember getting influenza. I've had influenza once that I know, and that took me out for about 24 hours. And then I was all right. This was a little bit worse, but about 3 times as long. Um, my infection was started in my stomach, and that was very painful. And then after that, like, I didn't know what was going on. I thought it felt like I'd taken some anti-inflammatory tablets without food, and it had burnt into my lining of my esophagus. That's what it felt like, and that's what I thought it was. But it developed, and there was, not really diarrhea. It wasn't diarrhea, but you definitely couldn't eat a lot. I felt sick. That lasted for a few days, and then the second wave, which is the temperature, came, and that's when I was like, oh, that's it, I'm done. And the gastrointestinal stuff is still there a little bit, even now, but the temperature, the fever's done, finished. Um, so, yeah, I just went on magnesium, vitamin C, zinc, and what else? Vitamin D, um, and just lots of rest. It didn't touch my lungs or my sinuses at all. There's no involvement whatsoever with my lungs and my sinuses, which was great. Um, feel very weak, still a bit weak. Um, but it ain't no thing. I just want to talk to you about the election, the federal election on May 21st. Look, I don't want to win. I don't want to influence anybody's decisions. I'm not trying to tell anybody who to vote for. I'm just giving you my opinions and where I'm at. And I really can't think of anyone I want to vote for. Really. Even the Liberal Democrats. There are just some things about the Liberal Democrats that I'm like, oh, it just makes me feel not right. And it's probably the difference between my sort of classical conservative stuff, views, and their sort of modern libertarian sort of perspective. I mean, I agree with their policies, but I want to vote for someone of character, and I just don't know them all well enough. I know some people, but it's just so difficult. There's really no one that I want to vote for. I'm probably going to vote, so put last who I definitely don't want to be in, and let them all fight it out for it at the top. Um, the biggest idea that I have at the moment is, how could this possibly be fixed? And one thing that I think is the problem is that if you think of politics as a commodity, politicians as a commodity, right? Like, where are they being supplied from? And most politicians are being supplied from schools that are socialist. And so you've got a lot of supply of politicians and bureaucrats who are woke or socialist or whatever, and you've got a bit of a ragtag of pseudo conservatives and libertarians who kind of don't really work together. They don't really have an ideology or a philosophy of politics that means that they're guaranteed to be on each other's side. Because you end up getting competition and people wanting to get something or to win something or to get their bill in or whatever. And so, from what I can tell, and I tried to talk about this on the project, or the People's Project, a couple of years ago, need a school or an organisation that trains people in conservative history and philosophy to specifically produce classical conservative politicians. Now, I'm not talking about Reagan or Thatcher or those type of conservatives. I'm reaching back a little bit further into the era where the best thinkers, the people that really dealt with these problems philosophically, back at a time when people knew how to think and these things were emerging, like socialism was emerging and communism was emerging, because they're the best. I haven't seen a lot of arguments. I haven't seen any arguments, to be honest, that beat Frederick Bastiat for putting to death the idea of vanilla socialism. And so if any sort of political force that is not engaging with Bastiat is not engaging with the best thinking. And so if they haven't read him, if they haven't studied, they're just going on basically their own ideas. And one of the worst things in a culture is when everybody does what is right in their own eyes. Here's the thing, right? You could agree with me that abortion is wrong. And we can work together on that. But if we don't have the same reasons why abortion is wrong, we're going to argue in a different area. So we're not going to create a cohesive community, because ultimately what happens is the people vote, and an ignorant people vote ignorantly. Selfish people vote selfishly. Apathetic people don't care. And the people, the citizens, have more idea about or more affection for certain elements of socialism than they do freedom. Like, for instance, there are people that are screaming out for freedom, but they're also screaming out for cheaper healthcare. I mean, those two things, they just don't see how those two things are incompatible. The more government subsidizes your healthcare, the more the power they have over you for mandates. It's just comical that a lot of the people that are yelling for freedom would also be really upset if they had their Medicare taken away, or their payments for family payments taken away, And so what sort of freedom do you want? What are you talking about? Because if you're just talking about freedom as in to choose a vaccine or not, that's minuscule. That's not really the problem. The problem is so much deeper. It's so easy for nefarious politicians to hide in that sort of environment where the people just want some superficial stuff. It's a lot harder if the people want to dig deep into the corruption in Victoria, let's say, and get all the corruption out, because they're willing to take a hit on the bribes and not get the bribe money. But how many people are willing to do that, to give up their family benefits or their rent assistance or their you know what I mean? So we've got a really complex systemic problem in Australia that is not going to be solved by this election at all. The best we can hope for is to buy some time. That's the best we can hope for, I think. And with that time, what must happen are things need to change. Education, specifically. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening in the least. The new sex ed curriculum, K to 10, is horrific. As some of you saw that Bernie Finn video where a 10-year-old girl was asked to go and talk to her dad about masturbation and ejaculation. I mean, just simply knowing those words as a 10-year-old means that you can look up Google, and even with the strictest search restraint, you're still going to find pretty graphic stuff. And that's horrible. I'm a victim. Well, do I want to say victim? Sure. I'm a victim of being exposed to pornography very early, and it really messed me up. It really messed me up. And so to have that happen to children is just outrageous. And the fact that there is no real social outcry that you can tell about how children are being taught and treated in schools is really indicative of how apathetic people are to what's being done. Because if someone's yelling about freedom and they're not up in arms about the education system, then they don't know what produces freedom. And that's why this problem is really endemic. Pardon the pun. It's really deep-seated, ingrained, systemic, all the way through. And Victoria is the most corrupt state in all of Australia, and probably in Australia's history. Excuse me, sorry. What's going on? I look terrible. So yeah, this is going to be probably the most important election that Australia's ever had. But at the same time, I really don't see a way of winning anything yet. Like what I've been saying for so long, this is such a marathon. This is not a sprint. And it's going to go beyond this election, and you have to be prepared to that. Because, I mean, basically we need to fight to get back control over our children, fight to get back control over our lawmaking systems, fight to get sovereignty back from international influences, and fight to get or fight the ideology of woke Marxism and postmodernism and how those things are sneaking into the legal system. I mean, how can you have a philosophy that doesn't believe in truth in a legal system? Imagine that. That no rationale is necessary to get prosecuted and fined or go to jail. Do you know what I mean? If you don't toe the doctrine. This is a a religious oligarchy. It's like this is so bad. This is so bad that it's you really have to go back to the Middle Ages or the late Middle Ages to get something approaching how bad this is. The Reformation was one of the main events that started to fight against this idea of an oligarchy, a religious oligarchy. Yeah, it's so scary, but it's coming, and we all need to be ready for it. And to a degree, we're too late to stop it, but because it's in there now, it's happening. So the best that we can do is to fight against it with all of our might and recognize that whatever dreams you had in the 90s or in 2000s or in 2010s, whatever dreams you had for your life, if they're not seriously in threat, they're dead. It's not going to happen. The entire environment has changed. And it would not be a waste of time to reevaluate your life and think, well, everything needs to be about fighting this now. Everything. I need to be thinking about how I'm fighting this while I'm bringing up my kids. I need to be thinking about how I'm fighting this while I'm working my job. I need to think about how I'm fighting this. And you're always in jeopardy. You're always in the crosshairs. In the crosshairs. And that's why we need groups like the Looking Glass, where people are together and they can get encouragement. And why I keep putting all the stuff on, because you need to know all of these things. These are major threads in how these things are moved forward. So if you're sort of tunnel visioned on COVID, or if you're tunnel visioned on mandates, or if you're tunnel visioned on something like ScoMo is bad, if you've got tunnel vision, man, you are not going to be able to help. You need to get rid of that tunnel vision. This is not just a one issue thing, this is systemic. And if you can't, you need to be able to see how your one issue fits into the bigger picture. If you can do that, fine. But if you're blind, if you've got tunnel vision, if you can't see it, you're going to be ineffective. And you're definitely going to never be satisfied or surprised, and things are going to surprise you all the time. That's how bad things are. Anyway, I've been rambling because I haven't talked to anyone for days. Thank you for everyone who's reached out and just made sure I'm okay and given me advice about how I should look after myself. I appreciate it all. It's like having a big family, which is lovely because I don't really have a big extended family. I've been missing my little guy. I managed to spend a little bit of time with him yesterday. And I'm so worried about his future. It just means that me as a parent, I have to draw a line in the sand and say, I won't go beyond this. Anything that I need to do to protect him is necessary. Anyway, We probably have been talking longer than what you wanted, I'm sure. I hope you guys are okay, and I just want to thank you for all the well wishes and the prayers and everything. And yeah, yeah, think about these things, because it's not over.